Tonight we spend the night in a monastery. It is the year 1200, somewhere in the soft green middle of Europe, in a valley chosen 400 years ago by monks who walked until they found running water, good soil, and quiet, and then stopped. The evening bell is ringing as we come down the valley road. Vespers. The sound rolls out over the fields in slow round waves, and everything that hears it knows what time it is. The ploughman, the miller, the rooks settling into the elms, the river itself. There are no clocks in this valley except the bells, and no one has ever needed another. The monastery sits where the valley gentles out, a small stone town with one purpose: church, cloister, dormitory, barns, orchards, fish ponds, mill. Smoke rises from the kitchen chimney, straight and unhurried. The last light is on the bell tower, gold going to rose. The fields around it are striped with the work of centuries. The monks drained the marsh, planted the orchards, dug the ponds, raised the walls, and they did it all on the same schedule they keep tonight, a few hours at a time, between prayers, for 400 years. Nothing here was hurried into existence. You can feel that in the stones from the road. The monks chose this kind of ground on purpose. All over Europe for 700 years, valleys, always valleys, with water that works and hills that hold the weather off, the same schedule they keep tonight, a few hours at a time, between prayers, for 400 years. Nothing here was hurried into existence. You can feel that in the stones from the road. The monks chose this kind of ground on purpose. All over Europe for 700 years, valleys, always valleys, with water that works and hills that hold the weather off. The mother house sent 12 monks and an abbot, the founding number, with a cart of books and tools, and the first winter was spent in huts of turf. Everything you can see in stone tonight grew out of that cart, the way the orchard grew out of a sack of pips. Beyond the home fields lie the granges, the outlying farms the lay brothers work, each a day's walk or less, sending in their wagons of grain and wool like streams feeding the river. The valley is not just a place the monastery sits in. It is a body the monastery grew, field by drained field, and tonight the whole of it is going to sleep limb by limb. A lay brother swings the gate for us without questions. Travelers are expected here. It is the rule of the house, written down 7 centuries before hotels. All guests who present themselves are to be welcomed as Christ, which in practice means soup, bread, a candle, and a bed, no matter who you are or what hour you knock. The gate closes behind us with a sound like a full stop at the end of a long sentence. Inside the walls, the air changes. It is not silence, not yet. It is the sound of a place finishing its day on purpose. Vespers is ending. The day is folding its hands. Come in. The soup is barley. The candle is lit. I've been folding wool. The air shunruf. It is not silence, not yet. It is the sound of a place finishing its day on purpose. Vespers is ending. The day is folding its hands. Come in. The soup is barley. The candle is lit. The gatehouse is a room shaped like a deep doorway, and it is the hinge of the whole house, the one place where the world and the monastery touch. The porter keeps it. He is chosen, the rule says, from the wise old men of the community, someone who knows how to take a message and give an answer, which after 60 years of practice he can do almost entirely with his eyebrows. His lodge is a stone nook with a bench, a candle, a small fire in winter, and a view of the road through a squint no wider than a psalm book. He has watched that road so long he can tell a merchant from a pilgrim at half a mile by the way the dust rises. On the wall hang the keys, each black iron shape worn bright at the grip. Gate, barn, cellar, church, mill. They are the house's whole geography in metal, and they cross the porter's palm in fixed order at locking time like beads. Beside the gate is a hatch in the wall, and beside the hatch a basket. This is the almonry, where the poor of the road are fed. Bread goes out through that hatch every day of every year, the 10th loaf from every batch by rule and by arithmetic. No questions are asked at the hatch. The rule is blunt about this. In the guest and in the beggar, the monks are to see someone in particular and act accordingly. 400 years of bread have gone through that little door on those instructions. Tonight the basket is empty and folded over, the road is quiet, and the porter has made his last answer of the day. He banks his small fire, sets the candle in the lantern for his rounds, and listens a moment to the dark outside the gate, the way a man listens to weather. Nothing out there but the river and an owl, both known to him by name, more or less. The road will keep till morning. The gate has it in writing. At the heart of the monastery is a square of grass and sky, and around it runs the cloister, 4 covered walkways of grey stone where the whole life of the house circulates like blood. We walk it slowly, because there is no other way to walk a cloister. The arches repeat themselves on our left, each one framing the garth, the little lawn and its well, and the one rose bush the abbot pretends not to be proud of. On our right the doors come in order: church, chapter house, parlor, refectory. The whole day of a monk is laid out along these 4 sides, and he walks them 10,000 times in a life, until his feet know the stones the way his tongue knows the psalms. The twilight is doing its slow blue work overhead. One lantern burns at the corner where the walkway turns toward the dormitory stairs. Lanterns here are placed, not scattered. Light is expensive and darkness is not feared, so the night is allowed to be mostly itself, with a few golden exceptions. Along the north walk nearest the church wall, where the light lasts longest, the carrels are built into the bays, little wooden study nooks, each with a sloped shelf and a stool, where the brothers read in the afternoons. Reading here is done with the lips moving and the ears involved, a low communal murmur the novices are taught to keep beneath the level of the fountain. The carrels are empty now, but each one holds its book closed on its marker like a held breath. By the refectory door stands the lavatorium, the long stone trough where the community washes before meals, its water brought in lead pipes from the spring above the orchard. An engineering feat the house is quietly vain about. The towels hang on their pegs in order. The trough drips its one drip somewhere inside, on a slow count of 10, the cloister's other clock. An old monk takes his evening turn around the square, hands folded into his sleeves, at a pace that would not alarm a snail. This is Brother Anselm, 60 years in this house. He entered at 15. Every important thing that has ever happened to him happened within 40 paces of where you are standing, and he considers himself widely traveled, because he has read everything in the library twice. He nods as he passes. Nods are most of conversation here, and they are surprisingly expressive once you learn the dialect. That one meant, the evening is good, the soup was good, you are welcome, mind the 3rd stair, God keep you. The well rope creaks somewhere out in the dark garth. Swallows turn in under the eaves, late, apologizing. 4 sides, walk slowly, turn out to be exactly the size of an evening. When in doubt, here you walk the square again. Nobody has ever once counted the laps. Supper here happened an hour ago, and it is worth describing because nobody in this house has ever once made small talk over a meal, and the result is the most peaceful dining room on earth. The refectory is a long stone hall with the tables set in rows and the abbot's table across the end, and built into one wall, halfway up, is a little stone pulpit with its own stair. That is the reader's perch. Every meal, one brother climbs up there and reads aloud while the rest eat, a chapter of the Rule, a life of a saint, a letter from a house in another country. The week's reader eats afterward, alone, and is excused from feeling sorry for himself because next week it will be someone else. So the meal sounds like this: spoons against bowls, the reader's single voice steady as a mill wheel, the creak of a bench, and under it all the attentive silence of 40 people doing 2 things at once, eating barley soup and hearing about the Desert Fathers, and somehow making both feel like the same act of attention. What cannot be said is signed. The house has a sign language 200 signs deep, polished by centuries of suppers. 2 fingers drawn along the palm is bread. A hand cupped and tilted is the water jug. The sign for honey is licking one finger, which the novices overuse, and the sign for more soup is universally understood in every language ever spoken. The signs travel down the table like small weather, requests and passings and thanks, all in perfect silence, all perfectly understood. The portions are plain and enough. Bread, soup, beans, an egg on feast days, fish on Fridays from the ponds, and each man's measure of the house's own small beer. Plain food eaten attentively, the infirmarian will tell you, has kept more monks past 80 than any draught in his cupboard. Now the hall stands empty, wiped down, benches in, candles out but two. The pulpit holds tomorrow's book, the ribbon already moved. The room smells of bread, beeswax, and listening. Even the rooms here know how to wait quietly. They learned it at table. Off the east walk of the Cloister is the chapter house, the monastery's one room for talking, and at this hour it is doing what it does best, which is holding its tongue. Every morning after the first office, the whole community files in here and sits on the stone bench that runs around the wall, each man in his place by seniority, and the business of the house is done. A chapter of the rule is read aloud, which is why the room is called what it is. The abbot assigns the day's work. Letters are read, disputes are settled, or at least set down, and then comes the strangest item of business in medieval Europe, the chapter of faults. Any monk who has broken something, the silence, a bowl, a rule, stands up of his own accord and says so, out loud, to everyone. He is given a penance the size of the fault, usually small, occasionally a week of reading at meals, and then the matter is over, permanently. Mentioning a confessed fault afterward is itself a fault. The slate of the whole house is wiped every single morning by hand in public, and 400 years of mornings have proven the arithmetic. A community can live this close, this long, only because nothing is ever allowed to ferment. The room is built round, some say, so that no one sits in a corner, and there are no corners for grudges either. Tonight the benches are empty stone, the candle stand holds one tall candle for the porter's round, and the moon looks in through the round window like a coin held up to a keyhole. Tomorrow's chapter will bring tomorrow's faults, a broken jug perhaps, a nap in the scriptorium, words during the silence. They will be owned, forgiven, and forgotten by breakfast. The room waits, perfectly content. It has heard 400 years of human weather and kept none of it. If stones could shrug, these would, kindly. One room is still working, in the gentlest sense of the word, the scriptorium, where books are made by hand, letter by letter, at the speed of patience. Brother Lucas has leave to work an extra hour by candle, because he is at a delicate passage and the ink is behaving. He sits at his slanted desk with the quiet self-possession of a heron, and before him lies the page he has been building all month, the opening of a gospel, its capital letter grown into a garden of gold and lapis blue, vines and small confident birds climbing the margin. Watch him work a while. He rules the lines with a stylus and a straight edge. He dips, touches the quill's tip to the horn's rim, and writes perhaps 4 words, each letter assembled from strokes in an order as fixed as a dance. Then the quill rests and he reads what he wrote, lips moving, because copying scripture is praying slowly with your hands. The gold is real gold, beaten thinner than breath, laid on cushions of pink gesso and burnished with a wolf's tooth until it catches candlelight from across the room. A finished book takes the skins of a small herd, the feathers of a flock, oak galls, lamp soot, lapis carried overland from mountains past Persia, and 2 years of mornings. It will outlast the man, the abbot, the kingdom, and arguably the language. Some of them are still here in your time, behind glass, still catching light off that same gold. The page he writes on was a calf in the spring orchard 2 years ago, and between field and desk it passed through more hands than a royal petition. Soaked, limed, scraped to translucence on the stretching frame, dried taut as a drumhead, cut, pricked along the margins with a wheel of little holes, and ruled. Parchment is the single most expensive thing in the room after the gold, which is why the margins of working documents fill up sideways and upside down, and why nothing is ever thrown away, only scraped and written over, so that some pages here are conversations between centuries, one hand faint beneath another, and in the margins of even the holiest books the copyists left themselves. Tiny complaints in Latin, now the lamp burns low, now my hand aches, thank God it will soon be dark. A small dog drawn where an initial failed. One famous margin in the library upstairs says only, The parchment is hairy, and 400 years of librarians have declined to disagree. Around him in the dark, the finished books sleep chained to their shelves, not from distrust of monks, but of weather, time, and visiting scholars with loose definitions of borrowing. Lucas finishes his line, reads it back, and allows himself the small, economical smile of a man 4 words closer to forever. He snuffs the candle with a brass cap, because breath is rude to a wick. The room keeps the smell of ink and tallow all night, like a thought it intends to finish in the morning. The kitchen is officially asleep and unofficially the warmest room in Christendom, which is why the kitchen cat, the most senior resident, has never once slept anywhere else. The great hearth is banked for the night, the coals raked together and hooded in ash, breathing so slowly you have to watch a while to catch the glow swell and fade. Above them the iron crane holds the morning porridge pot, already filled with water and steel-cut oats, swung off the heat waiting. Breakfast here has begun the night before, like everything else. The room smells of wood smoke, onions, and 400 years of bread. The long table has been scrubbed so many times its oak has gone pale and soft-edged, like a stone in a stream. Copper pots hang in their sizes, smallest to largest, and hold the candlelight the way the gold leaf did upstairs. The kitchener, Brother Martin, polishes them on Saturdays and would deny being proud of it, unconvincingly. From the bakehouse next door comes the deepest smell of all, the sourdough mother in her covered crock, older than anyone in the house, fed daily like a member of the community, which she is. Tomorrow before dawn she will raise the day's loaves, 4 dozen of them, dark and heavy and honest. A 10th will go to the gate for the poor by rule, baked into the arithmetic of every batch. The Fishponds trout are tomorrow's dinner and do not know it, finning quietly in the dark water out past the herb garden. Friday is fish always. The week here has flavors the way it has prayers, in fixed and comforting order. The cat opens one eye, confirms you are not a mouse or the kitchener, and closes it. A thingy wanted to set in any for muning, where chum quietly in the dark water out past the herb garden. Friday is fish always. The week here has flavors the way it has prayers, in fixed and comforting order. The cat opens one eye, confirms you are not a mouse or the kitchener, and closes it. The embers swell and fade, swell and fade. The crock breathes its sour sweet breath under its cloth. A kitchen at night is a heart at rest. It beats slow, and the whole house can sleep because of it. Beneath the refectory, down a stair worn soft in the middle, lies the undercroft, the monastery's larder, and the kingdom of Brother Cellarer, who is to this house what the hold is to a ship. The rule describes his job in one sentence that has never been improved on. He is to look after everything as if it were the altar's own vessels, and he is to do it without making anyone sad. That second clause is real, and it is why cellarers are chosen the way porters are, for steadiness. He holds the keys to everything eatable, drinkable, and burnable, and he gives out each day's measure without fuss. And when a novice drops a jar of honey, he is required by the rule to be kind about it. His ledgers live in his head and on a few tally sticks. So many sacks of flour against the winter, so many wheels of cheese turned weekly, each one stamped with the year. So many barrels of the small beer, so much candle wax against the dark half of the year. Salt, salted fish, dried beans in their sacks like congregations of pebbles. The whole survivable winter, counted and shelved. The room itself does half his work. Thick walls, earth floor, the river's coolness in the stone. It holds one temperature the year round, the temperature of patience. Cheese ages here at the speed the books are copied upstairs. The barrels sit their seasons out on their stillions, working quietly inside, the only residents of the monastery excused from silence, allowed their occasional creak and sigh of fermentation, which the cellarer calls their singing. His little lamp is the only light, and he has just made his last round with it, touched each barrel head the way the lay brother pats the cow, and gone up to Compline. Below the whole sleeping house the winter's bread sleeps too, in the cool dark, counted twice, a full larder under a stone floor. There are cathedrals with less peace in them. The bell rings once, softly, and the house moves to the church for the last office of the day, Compline, the completing. The monks file into the choir stalls by candlelight, two facing rows of carved oak, each seat shaped by its occupant over decades the way a path is shaped by feet. The church above them disappears into the dark, the vaults too high for candle reach, so the ceiling tonight is the same as the sky, present, felt, unseen. Compline is short, and it is the same every night, deliberately. The same psalms, the same hymn, the same antiphon. A monk could sing it through a fever, and old ones on their last night often do. Its whole purpose is to be known by heart, so the heart can do it without the mind, and the mind can begin to lie down. They sing into the dark, unhurried plain chant, one melodic line, no harmony, no instruments, the sound rising and settling like slow breath. Into thy hands, keep us as the apple of an eye, hide us under the shadow of thy wings. The Latin rolls soft on 400 years of the same stone, which has heard it 150,000 times and absorbs it like rain. Then the abbot's blessing, a sprinkle of holy water as the brothers pass, drops landing cool and exact, and then the strangest, kindest law of the house takes effect, the great silence. From now until after sunrise, no one in this house will speak, not the abbot, not the kitchener, not the guest master. Words are done for the day. Anything that truly cannot wait must manage on gestures, and nothing in 400 years has ever truly not waited. Every line of the office was chosen centuries ago with the night in mind. The Psalms of Compline are the calm ones, the trusting ones, picked for men about to lie down in the dark in a world without locks worth the name. And they say so plainly, I will lay me down in peace and sleep. He shall give his angels charge over thee. The office is, when you listen to its bones, a community talking itself down from the day, the oldest sleep ritual in the West, performed nightly, unbroken, since before these stones were stacked. The novices learn it last of all the offices, not because it is hard, but because it must be learned the way it will be used, half asleep. Their master has them sing it on winter evenings until it sinks beneath memory into something nearer marrow. And an old monk who has lost every other word he ever knew will still follow Compline to the end, his lips keeping the place his mind let go. The candles go out in order, two hands moving down the rows. The last one is left for the sacristy lamp, a single red star in the enormous dark. The monks file out by feel, every flagstone known. The church holds the held note of the silence. It will hold it till dawn. After Compline, the brothers go up to the dormitory, and the house performs its nightly miracle, the putting to bed of 40 men in total silence in under 10 minutes. The dormitory is one long room under the roof beams, the whole community sleeping together the way the rule prescribes, in two rows of low beds with a walkway between, like a quiet street. Each bed is straw in a wooden frame, a bolster, and good gray wool. Each monk sleeps in his habit, belted, which the rule also prescribes, partly for warmth, partly for modesty, and partly, the novices suspect, so that no excuse exists on earth for being late to the night office. There is an order even to lying down, the seniors at the stair end, the novices by the far wall, the lantern burning all night at the head of the night stair, because the rule says the brothers should sleep with a light burning, and 400 years of stubbed toes agree. Listen to the room settle. 40 straw mattresses receive 40 tired men, a long soft crackling like a fire burning out. A few coughs, distributed fairly, the wool blankets drawn up, that heavy comfortable sound, someone's knees audibly grateful. Then layer by layer the breathing slows and synchronizes the way breathing does in a shared room, until the whole dormitory breathes more or less together, one long slow tide going in and out under the beams. Old Brother Anselm is asleep before the last lantern flicker settles, with the ease of a man who has done this 900 times a year for 60 years, and has never once brought a worry up the stairs. The novices take longer. Novices always take longer. The youngest one watches the lantern and the beam shadows and thinks enormous thoughts, smaller and smaller, until they fit through the door of sleep. The lantern holds the room steady. The stair waits for the small bell, hours away yet. 40 sleepers, one breath. The house has pulled its blanket up. Outside, the moon has taken charge, and the herb garden is conducting its night business, which is fragrance. By day this garden is a pharmacy and a spice rack in raised beds, laid out in a grid as neat as the library shelves. Sage, rue, fennel, savory, lovage, mint that needs watching or it will annex burgundy. Each bed has its plank label and its purpose. The infirmarian, Brother Felix, can treat most of what a body does wrong from these few square rods, and what he cannot treat he can at least make taste better. By night the garden softens. The moonlight takes the colors away and gives back silver in compensation. The mist comes up to about ankle height and stays there, well behaved, and the smells come out because herbs are generous in the dark, sage and mint and the cold green smell of dew on box hedge, each one stepping forward as you pass its bed like a name being read out. The sundial in the center has gone off duty, faceless in the moonlight. There is something deeply restful about a sundial at night. It is the one timekeeper that knows when to stop. Felix was out here at dusk, cutting valerian and chamomile for the infirmary's sleep draughts. The old monks take them in hot water at bedtime. The recipe is in a book in the library, in a hand 200 years dead, with a note in the margin, works best if read aloud slowly, which the librarian insists is medical advice. A hedgehog crosses the path with the gait of a wind-up toy on her nightly slug patrol. She is also in her way staff. The mist breathes in, the beds exhale, the moon files its slow report. A garden at night is proof that things grow best while no one watches, including, it turns out, you. One room in the monastery is allowed a fire all night, and beds with feathers in them, and meat in the pot, and conversation at need, and that room is the infirmary, because the rule, which is strict with the strong, goes soft as wool the moment a man is weak. The sick are to be served, it says, as if they were Christ in person, and before all things and above all things, above the offices, above the silence. The whole iron timetable of the house bends around this room like a river around a stone. Brother Felix keeps it, with his shelves of labeled jars and his hanging bundles of the garden's harvest, and his book of receipts in 4 generations of handwriting. Horehound for the chest, willow bark for aches and fevers, valerian and chamomile steeped hot for the old men's sleep, honey on everything, on wounds, in draughts, on bread for the convalescent, because honey is the one medicine that has never once been refused. Tonight he has 3 guests. Old Brother Stephen, 91, who is not ill so much as finished with stairs, and who holds the unofficial house record for Compline psalms recited from memory while asleep. A lay brother with a wrenched shoulder from the hayloft, mending fast and enjoying the feather bed with a clear conscience, and a young novice with a fever already broken, sleeping the deep wet-browed sleep of the safely recovering, which is the best sleep ever invented. The fire is small and steady, allowed its voice while everything else keeps the silence. The jars stand in their ranks, the herbs turn slowly on their strings in the warm rising air, sage and mint trading places in the smell of the room. Felix sits up with them through the first watch, in a chair built by a carpenter who understood sitting, and does the accounts of small mercies. All 3 breathing well, the fire fed, the draughts measured for the dawn doses, the weakest sleep in the warmest room. That is the whole theology of the place, in one sentence, in the dark. Beyond the kitchen garden, the ground steps down to the fish ponds, 3 long rectangles of moon, and past them the orchard begins, and this is the part of the monastery that works the night shift without knowing it has one. The ponds were dug by hand by monks 2 centuries dead, and they have paid for the digging 10,000 Fridays over. Carp in the big pond, trout where the leat runs cooler, eels in the lower pond that will be smoked in the autumn and eaten with mustard at Martinmas, a fact the cellarer permits himself to look forward to from about June. The water tonight is glass with a moon in it. Every so often the glass shivers, a ring spreads, a tail has turned over somewhere down in the dark, and the moon wobbles and reassembles, entirely used to it. The orchard stands in rows as orderly as the Psalter, apples mostly, pears along the south wall, a quince by the gate that the abbot defends from all rational pruning advice. The trees are old enough to have names and shapes like handwriting, and in the moonlight and the ankle mist they look like a procession that paused and stayed. Under them the bees are shut up in their straw skeps, each hive a small parliament, adjourned till sunrise. The monks keep them for wax even more than honey. The church's candles are bees' work, and the old belief runs that the bees must be told the house's news, a death, an election, a feast, or they will take offense and swarm. The novice assigned to beekeeping takes this duty with extreme seriousness and tells them everything. The bees, to be fair, have stayed. Mist to ankle height, moon overhead, fish below, apples above, bees dreaming in the middle layer. The night here is arranged in shelves like the cellar. Walk back up the path slowly. The wet grass forgives every step. One door off the cloister opens on the smell of the centuries, leather and vellum and dust and time. The library. It is one room, 500 books. That does not sound like much where you come from, but tonight in this kingdom it is a treasure beyond the king's, and the king knows it and has hinted, and the abbot has changed the subject twice. The books lie chained on their slanted shelves, each in its catalogued place. Gospels and Psalters, Augustine and Boethius, Pliny who is wrong about wonderful things, a herbal, a bestiary where the whale is drawn from rumor and looks deeply apologetic, land deeds, chronicles, and one volume of Cicero that survived because some monk 300 years ago thought the pagan sentences too handsome to lose. Every one copied by hand somewhere by someone, lamplit and patient, in a chain of hands going back, copy by copy, to a first-hand long dust. This room is how anything survived at all. When the empire fell apart and the roads went bad and the towns shrank inside their walls, rooms like this one held the alphabet of civilization through the long night, not because anyone planned a rescue, but because places like this had a rule, and the rule said copy and keep and copy again. The flood went down. The words were still dry. Once a year, at the start of Lent, this room performs its great ceremony. The whole community gathers, and the librarian calls each monk by name, and each returns the one book he was issued last year and receives another for the year ahead. One book, 1 year. The rule expects it to be read entire, slowly, returned to the way a field is walked. Brother Anselm, on this system, has read the library through twice in 60 years and is a third of the way around again, and says the books have changed considerably since his first lap, by which he means he has. The librarian keeps the register of it all in a hand as small as frost, who holds what, since when, and in the back pages the necrology of books, the ones lost to damp, to fire at the old grange, to a borrowing bishop in his grandfather's time. Each entry mourned in one dry Latin line. Libraries have their dead too, and remember them. Moonlight comes through the one tall window and lies across the reading desk in a pale lane, and the dust motes drift through it, rising and falling on currents too gentle to have names. The chains hang in their soft curves. Somewhere in the dark a binding settles, a single creak, a book shifting in its sleep. The librarian says books rest at night like everything else, and that a library after Compline should be entered the way you enter a stable of sleeping animals. Quietly, briefly, with respect for the breathing. Listen. 500 books, breathing. Close the door on them gently. They have work in the morning, holding everything, hoarding everything it says. The tower keeps the valley's time, and at this hour it stands like a man asleep on watch, both true at once. In the rope chamber at the tower's foot, the bell ropes hang down through their holes in the ceiling, each with its woolen grip striped in faded color, each as known to the ringer's hands as the stair is to his feet. Above, in the dark timber cage, the bells themselves hang mouth down, waiting. There are 5, and they have names, because everything trusted with a voice here is christened. The great one is Gabriel, of course. Gabriel says the hours, calls the offices, and can be heard with the wind right 2 valleys away. A bell is the only voice allowed to interrupt the great silence, and so the bells are in a sense the senior community of the house. They were cast in a pit beside the church, bronze poured by traveling founders amid much prayer, and the oldest of them has rung for every monk who ever lived here, received each one at his arrival, and told him out at the end, one slow stroke for each year of his life, while the valley stopped work and counted. The ringer is Brother Paul, who climbs the spiral stair on the hour through the night offices, and knows it so well he reports accurately that the stair has 42 steps going up and 43 coming down, and has never once explained himself. Now the ropes hang dead still in the moonlight from the lancet window. The tower hums very faintly in the night wind, a sound below sound, the breath of a sleeping voice. Gabriel waits in the dark overhead with the patience of 3 tons of bronze, holding the next hour in his mouth. When it comes, he will say at once, softly, the night ring, and the valley will hear it in its sleep and believe it. The time is kept. You may stop counting anything at all. One candle in the house burns later than the Scriptorium's, and it belongs to the abbot, whose lodging is 2 small rooms and whose burden is everything. Abbot Gerald was elected by the brothers 11 years ago in the chapter house by free vote as the rule requires, and reports persist that he asked them twice to choose someone else. He is shepherd, magistrate, landlord, banker, host, and father to 40 monks, 60 lay brothers, and a valley of tenants, and the rule's job description for him is frankly terrifying. He must, it says, so adapt himself to each man's character that he not only loses none of the flock, but rejoices in its increase. 40 characters, 1 man adapting. His ledger lies open tonight at the wool accounts, because the buyer comes after Michaelmas, and the roof of the south barn will not survive another winter without lead, and lead is bought with wool. Beside the ledger a letter half drafted to the bishop, all courtesy on the surface, all chess underneath. Under that a note in his own hand about the youngest novice homesick, to be seated near Brother Anselm at chapter, because Anselm radiates a calm that works on novices like the Infirmary Fire works on old bones. This is what praying for a house looks like at the desk level. Roofs, wool, bishops, 1 homesick boy. He finishes the wool column, sands the ink, and closes the ledger on the day. Then he stands a while at the narrow window where his predecessors stood, looking at the same stars over the same roofs, the church, the dormitory full of his sleeping brothers, the barn with its warm cargo, the gatehouse light. Whatever he says to the dark at that window each night, it is short, and it is the same every night, and no one has ever heard it. The candle gets the last word as he caps it, a small smoke prayer straight up. The shepherd sleeps last. Then the flock is all one fold. In the deepest fold of the night, a small bell rings in the dormitory, and the strangest beauty of this life unfolds. The monks rise in the dark, 2 hours past midnight, for vigils, the night office. They sleep clothed in their habits, on straw mattresses in one long room, so rising is simple. Sit up, find your shoes by memory, fall into line. At the end of the dormitory a single lantern marks the night stair, the worn stone steps that lead directly down into the church, each tread hollowed in the middle by 5 centuries of this exact moment, sleepy feet at 2 in the morning going down to sing. They descend like slow water. In the choir the candles are already lit, 2 of them, enough for the books and no more. And then, in the middle of the night, in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by miles of sleeping farmland, the chant rises again. This is the office almost no one else has ever heard. The plowman sleeps through it. The king sleeps through it. It is sung to the dark, for the dark, on behalf of everyone asleep in it. The monks would tell you that is precisely the point. Someone should be awake, they say, the way a city keeps watchmen, only this watch is kept against nothing and for everything. While the world sleeps, somebody is up, keeping the night warm. Psalm follows psalm, long ones. The night office gets the long ones, and between them silence on purpose, and readings in a single steady voice. An old monk nods and is allowed to. The lantern-bearer makes a slow round, and his light swings the shadows of the columns across the vault like the boughs of a great tree in wind. In summer the office is short and the dark is kind. In deep winter it is the house's mountain, sung in sheepskin boots with the breath clouding, and the rule arranges the year's nights with the same care as its days. Longer offices for the long dark, shorter for the short, the whole calendar of prayer cut to fit the actual sky. The monks have sung through frosts that cracked the well rope in one famous night when the wine froze in the sacristy, an event the chronicle records with what can only be called pride. And for the brother who cannot stay awake, the rule has mercy ready, because the rule has met human beings. The lantern-bearer's round exists exactly for him. A light held near, a touch on the shoulder, no word, no shame. The nodding man stands and joins the walking until the sleep falls off him. Falling asleep at Vigils is not a scandal here. It is Tuesday. The house has been gentle with 3 in the morning for 400 years. An hour more. Then they climb the worn stair again and return to their beds for the second sleep, the sweetest one, the one with the work already done. Far off, a fox barks at the moon and gets no argument. The night has been kept. You were covered the whole time. You always were. The monks have climbed back to their beds, and the church is empty again, and an empty church at 3 in the morning is not an absence. It is a presence with the room to itself. The candles are out. The sacristy lamp remains, the one small red flame that never goes out, hung near the altar, a star indoors. By its light, which is to say by almost none, the church reorganizes itself into its night shape, the pillars standing their watch down the nave like an avenue of patient giants, the vaults somewhere overhead among their own shadows, the windows holding the barest gray hint of the moon. The stone does its night work, which is settling. A church this size moves all night, fractionally, beam by beam and joint by joint, releasing the day's sun from its south wall, leaning imperceptibly into the wind, and it speaks while it does it, one knock or tick or soft groan at a time, scattered through the dark like punctuation. The masons who built it left their marks on these stones, little personal signs chiseled beside the joints, an axe, a fish, a 5-pointed star, each man signing stone he knew would outlive his name. It has. The chant is finished for the night, but the building remembers it. Stone holds sound the way it holds warmth, longer than seems reasonable. Stand still enough, the sacristan claims, and you can hear the church humming the psalms back to itself. A 5th below hearing. He is an old man and entitled to his physics, and at this hour, in this dark, you would not bet against him. The red lamp breathes in its glass. Burning all night is its entire vocation, and it is good at it. Walk the side aisle softly and let yourself out by the cloister door. The church does not mind the dark. The church at night is the dark, praying anyway. Down where the Leat leaves the river, the mill stands with its wheel braked for the night, and even stopped, it is the busiest looking stillness on the grounds. By day the mill is the loudest thing the monastery owns, all rumble and splash and the white noise of grinding that the Miller brothers stop hearing by their second week. It grinds the valley's grain, the monasteries and the tenants who pay a toll of flour for the service, all of it written in the cellarer's reckoning. By night the sluice gate is dropped. The water is sent politely around by the bypass channel, and the wheel hangs dripping over the race, every paddle letting go of the river one drop at a time, a clock made of water running down. The race still runs beneath, shallow and quick over its stones, the sound of hurry with nothing left to do. Eels ride it down on dark nights in autumn, which is why the eel trap is set where it is, and why Martinmas tastes the way it does. Inside, the millstones rest one on the other, dressed and ready, and the hoppers stand full for the morning, and the air is flour. Flour on the beams, flour in the lantern glass, flour in the spider webs which hang in the corners like gray lace, the only webs in the monastery nobody sweeps, on the principle that a mill spider earns her keep. The smell is wet wood, weed, cold stone, and meal, the smell of the river being made useful for 800 yards before being released with thanks. On the meadow beyond, the mist has come up to the wheel's height and stopped, as if queuing for grinding. The wheel drips, the race chatters, the stones sleep face to face. Tomorrow the gate lifts and the valley's bread begins here, turning. Tonight the river just goes by, unemployed, singing to itself. Last round of the night, with the lay brother whose turn it is to walk the yards, we end among the animals, because every monastery is half farm, and the farm half is asleep in straw. The great barn holds the herd in its warm wooden dark, 12 cows folded down into the bedding like brown hills, working over their cud in that endless meditative rhythm that monks privately admire. The barn smells of hay, animal warmth, and timber, a smell with no sharp edges anywhere in it. The roof beams above were trees in Charlemagne's time. They creak about once an hour just to stay in practice. The sheep lie in the fold beyond, a single gray cloud distributed into its parts. each yew a soft heap with her breath showing faintly in the moonlight from the high small windows. The flock is the monastery's wool, and the wool is the monastery's money, and so the shepherd brother counts them morning and evening. He counts them, it must be said, much the way you are about to, slowly, losing his place, starting over without minding. The plough oxen, castor and pullocks, enormous and mild, stand asleep on their feet, an engineering marvel. Nobody applauds. The hens are shelved in the coop like loaves. The dovecote murmurs once and settles, 500 pigeons reorganizing by one feather's width. Up in the loft, the hay is in for the year, a warm dark mountain of stored summer, and the loft has its own staff. The barn owls nest in the gable, white-faced and noiseless, the night's pest control, on the same unwritten contract as the kitchen cat and the garden hedgehog. One of them leaves the gable hole now, a pale shape crossing the yard without a sound, punctual as an office bell. The great barn itself was built like the church, by the same minds, oak frame raised in a week of communal labor a century ago, and the carpenters cut the roof as a nave, tie beams and rafters in long solemn bays, so that hay is stored, as the abbot once observed, in better architecture than most bishops sleep under. The tithe wagons fill it at harvest, the valley's 10th part brought in by law and custom, and from this barn the same grain flows back out all winter as the gate loaves and the seed corn lent to tenants whose harvest failed. The barn breathes in at autumn and breathes out all year. The lay brother checks the latches by feel, pats one specific cow, always the same one, an arrangement of long standing, and stands a moment in the doorway looking at the moon over the barn roof, taking the unhurried inventory of a man whose responsibilities are all, at this moment, breathing slowly in straw. Warm animals in a dry barn under a sound roof. For 10,000 years that has been the sound of things being basically all right. It still is. Listen to it a moment longer. All present, all down, all breathing. For 10,000 years that has been the sound of things being basically all right. It still is. Listen to it a moment longer. All present, all down, all breathing. Above the home fields the land tilts up to the hill pasture, and from the sheepfold on its shoulder you can see the whole of the monastery's world at once, laid out in the moonlight like a page. The fold is a ring of dry stone wall, built without mortar by men who knew exactly which stone wanted which neighbor, and inside it the hill flock lies folded for the night, 40 gray heaps of wool breathing the cold sweet air. These are the far flock, the hardy ones, summered up here where the grass is short and the views are long. The shepherd's hut stands beside the fold on its sled runners, so it can follow the sheep around the seasons. A one-man wooden room with a bunk, a stove the size of a loaf, and a door that frames the valley like a painting nobody could afford. Look down the way the shepherd does, last thing. The valley holds the monastery the way the fold holds the flock. There is the church tower with the moon on its lead roof. There the long dormitory ridge, the barns, the pale stitchwork of the fish ponds, the orchard rows, the mill and its thread of silver leat, all of it walled and gated and latched, all of it breathing slow. One window glows faint in gold at this distance. The Infirmary Fire, the house's banked ember. From up here you can see what the place really is. A few acres of order in a wide, dark world, 400 years old, lit by one lamp and guarded mostly by habit and a wall you could step over. It has been enough, that is the astonishing thing. It has been enough every single night for 400 years. You sighs. The hut stove ticks once. The valley below turns very slightly toward morning. The high flock sleeps nearest the stars, and seems to know it. Smug, woolly astronomers come down the path. The dew is rising and the gate below expects us. Across the river from the monastery's mill lies the village, and the village is asleep the way only a village before clocks can sleep completely. A dozen cottages along one lane, thatch silvered by the moon, walls of the same river clay as the swallows nest under their eaves. The villagers are the monastery's tenants and neighbors and workforce and congregation, ploughmen and dairy wives and the smith and the alewife, and their day ended when the light did because rushlights are dear and dawn is free. They sleep whole households to a room, dog at the door, hens in the rafters, the fire banked under its curfew of ash, that word itself meaning cover the fire, the night's first law of every house in Europe. No one in the village owns a clock. No one they have ever met owns a clock. Time here is the bells across the river, and the bells are far enough that they arrive softened to sound like someone remembering the hour rather than announcing it. The villagers sleep through vigils as a rite, and the monks sing it for them as a duty, and both sides consider the arrangement fair. The lane is empty, the well sweep stands against the stars, the smithy holds its banked forge like a secret, one orange seam in the dark. Somewhere a dog lifts its head at the fox's bark from the hill, files at under known foxes, and sets the head back down. For all the world's troubles, and the world has them, kings and taxes and rumors of war on the roads, none of it is awake within a day's ride of this lane tonight. The river slides between village and monastery like a long quiet agreement. One bank prays for the other grows bread for the first. Both are asleep, and the river minds the border, and has never once charged a toll. You are not the only guest tonight. The guest hall by the gate holds the day's road asleep in rows, and their luggage tells their stories from its pegs. A pilgrim's staff and scallop shell bag by the door, its owner 3 months out from home and 3 weeks from the shrine, walking off a promise made at a sickbed. He sleeps like his feet hurt, which they do, and the guest master has already left goose grease and clean rags by his boots without being asked, the way the house has done for every pilgrim since anyone's grandfather. A wool merchant's packs in the corner, sample fleeces bound tight, their owner sleeping with one arm over them out of pure habit, since nothing here has been stolen since the rain before last. He is the abbot's after Michaelmas appointment, come early, and over supper he traded news for news, prices in the river towns for the state of the roads south, the guest hall being the only newspaper this valley has ever had. A carter snores by the fire with the clear conscience of a man whose axle broke within sight of a monastery rather than 10 miles from one. The wheelwright brother has the wheel already and promised it whole by tierce, and the carter has decided around the soup that Providence is real and well organized. The fire is allowed to burn low and live here for travelers' bones. The rule of the guest hall is the gate rule again, in its long form. All are received, none are questioned past their needs. The poorest sleeps as near the fire as the richest, and the guest master, who has seen every kind of traveler the roads can produce, treats Dusty and Grand with an identical mild courtesy that has deflated more arrogance than any sermon. Cloaks steam faintly on their pegs. The fire ticks down through its embers. 4 strangers breathe in 4 rhythms that slowly become one, the way breathing does. The road sleeps here, between 2 doors of one night. Tomorrow it scatters 4 ways. That is what this house is for, as much as the prayers. It is where the road rests. There is an hour after vigils that belongs to no one, and it may be the stillest hour Christendom owns. The monks are back in their beds for the second sleep, the one they call the sweet sleep, with the night office already sung and nothing owed until dawn. The porter sleeps. The abbot sleeps. Brother Felix dozes in his chair by the infirmary fire with 3 slow pulses under his care. Even the kitchen cat has finished her rounds and folded herself onto the warm stone by the banked hearth, the last shift of the night gone off duty. Now the house belongs to its stones and its stars. The roofs lie silver under the moon, church and cloister and dormitory and barn. The whole shape of the place like a ship anchored in the valley, rigging of chimney smoke, cargo of sleepers. Above it the sky goes about its enormous quiet business, the stars wheeling 1 slow degree at a time around the pole star, which the monks call the steadfast one, and steer their souls by roughly as sailors steer ships. The sacristy lamp burns red in its window, the one wakeful thing, the house's heart light. 400 years it has burned, through wars it never heard about, and plagues that stopped at the river, and kings whose names the chronicle spells 3 different ways. Whatever else has happened in the world, this small flame has simply continued, which is the house's whole method applied to fire. Nothing needs you in this hour, nothing needs anyone. The night is keeping itself, the way the river runs and the stars turn, on the oldest schedule there is. The valley breathes out mist, the roofs hold their moonlight like shallow water. Somewhere below, 40 sleepers trust the night completely. They have references going back centuries. Trust it with them. This hour has never once failed to become morning. Lie back now, and let the year turn over the monastery the way the night is turning, because the place only makes full sense seen from a distance of seasons. In Advent the valley goes violet and waiting, and the house sings in the dark mornings with its breath showing. At Christmas there are 3 masses and a goose for everyone, including the carter if his axle obliges. And the church at midnight is one warm gold thing in a black and silver world. February is ink weather, Scriptorium weather, the year's best copying done while the fields sleep under frost. Spring arrives in the fishponds first, then the orchard goes white as the dormitory's washing, and the lambs come to the hill fold, and Easter fills the church with fire and water, and the one word the house saves all year, sung at midnight with every candle lit. Summer is hay, and even the scriptorium empties for the hazel, monks in the meadow in a line with scythes swinging to the rhythm of a psalm, because everything here is done to the rhythm of something. The wool clip goes off in July with the merchant, and becomes in time the south barn's new lead roof, prayer made weatherproof. Autumn is the orchard's turn, apples by the wagon load, the cider press groaning its one annual complaint, the eels running the mill race by night into the waiting trap. Martinmas with its smoked eel and its first fires, the bees told the news of the harvest, the ledgers ruled and balanced. And then Advent again, violet again, waiting again. The wheel has no end and needs none, 400 turns so far. The stones get 1 day older every day and 1 year smoother every year, and the psalms come around like the seasons, like the offices, like the stars over the bell tower. Everything in this valley moving in circles, wide enough to feel like rest. A year here is a long, slow breath. You are lying inside one of its nights. Breathe with it, in and out, winter and summer, vespers and dawn. And so to your cell, which is what they call the guest room, and which is the most honest bedroom you will ever sleep in. It contains a bed, a stool, a candle, a hook, and a window full of stars, and it has contained exactly that for 400 years. Nothing in this room wants anything from you. Nothing in it needs updating, answering, or improving. It is a room with everything unnecessary already removed by experts with 4 centuries of practice in subtraction. The bed is narrow, but the blanket is good wool from the cloud of sheep you just visited. The candle on the stool has an inch left, which is the guest master's quiet way of saying, "This much wakefulness and no more." The great silence holds the whole valley now. Listen to how thick it is and how full. The river going about its permanent errand past the fish ponds. The mill wheel ticking as it cools. Straw shifting under a cow. The bell tower's timbers easing. The silence here is not the absence of the day. It is the day finished, ringing gently like a struck bowl coming to rest. In a few hours before light, the bell will wake the brothers again, and the whole patient wheel will turn through its offices one more time. Prayer and bread, ink and hay, the same tomorrow as today, the same next year as this one. On and on. The calmest machine ever built, a machine for turning ordinary days into something kept. But that is their watch, not yours. Yours is ended. Brother Anselm would tell you, and his nod tonight already did, that sleep is also an office, the body's Compline, and that it counts. You are not stopping. You are participating. The candle is at its last half-inch. Lean over when you are ready and give it your breath. There, the stars have the room now. They are very old staff and entirely reliable. The bell will not ring for you. The silence is yours till morning. Sleep now. The watch is kept. The books are breathing. The barn is warm. And the night, as always here, is in very good hands. Good night.